Hi.
Hey, John. Okay,
Hello there.
it's already going to the YouTube stream, so
Hang on, I can't hear you yet. Try now.
hello.
Hello.
Okay, so it's already live streaming to YouTube. I set it up as public so people got notified and all that, so you're all
Great.
set to go.
Thank you very
I'm
much,
just gonna-
John. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make you a host and I gotta drop off. There we go. All right, have fun.
Thank you.
Hey,
Hey,
how are you
nice to meet
doing?
you, David.
Nice to meet you as well.
Do you know Deryagan?
I do not.
I don't recognize his name either. So let's say hello as people come in.
Okay.
Hello, Deryagan. Are you with us?
Візьми трубку, скажи, що я зараз.
Алло, да, зараз спускаємось. Угу.
Probably just as well I don't speak Ukrainian.
Yeah. He's not with me, but that is Russian. Tyagin, he's nice. English.
Мені важко.
Okay.
So the answer is no.
He knows a little bit, and he just left.
Okay. Maybe he'll be back. So David, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Hello, Deryagan. Let's give people a few minutes to get in, and then I will give you a little background, and then I will invite you to give us some background on what you've been doing. I can tell you that since the start of the Ukraine crisis, we've been meeting every month or so, trying to see if we could connect the dots. And the dots at the far end, figuring out who our partners on the ground would be, has been a challenge. We just haven't cracked that case. And so we really haven't done anything except keep on checking to see if we can figure it out. I'll be asking you about that. Hello, Julie.
Hello, guys. Do you hear me?
Very well, thank you. We're going to give people a few more minutes before we start officially. And I'm going to close some windows in hopes that I can have a good internet connection today. So David, since you're new, I'll ask you how familiar you are with e-NABLE, and that'll help me know how much to bore you with stuff that you already know about.
Yeah. So, from my impression of e-NABLE, you guys 3D print prosthetic hands, and I'm not sure of any other prosthetics you guys produce. And I think I watched a video where you use cables for the hands, and when they bend their hand, that's how it moves. And you guys work sort of like we do, where you crowdsource your 3D prints, where you just build a community of people from just everywhere and work together to 3D print supplies.
That's great. That's great. And Adapt 3D is a. Do you have a business, or are you there specifically for this cause?
Specifically for this cause, we're 501c3.
That's great. Oh, you are good. And you have some affiliation with Naomi Lundman and humanitarian makers.
Yes, although we've never like worked together, although we've talked and she made the introduction.
That's great. Okay. I see that people are still filing in and it's only 12:03. So I'm going to continue to just try to shut down unnecessary technology on my computer.
John, David, good evening.
Hello, Yuri. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
We're sort of giving people 5 minutes to show up, but since you and I haven't met
Sure.
before, I don't think, let's say hello.
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 I also invited Anton. He is here in audio only mode. Yeah. He is interested in manufacturing or 3D printing prosthetics, and this is the reason I sent him a link to today's event. So,
Well, that's great. And Yuri, I don't think we've met personally before. Okay, let me start the meeting. Here we are. It's 12:04.
okay.
So hello, everybody. This is e-NABLE's monthly chapter leaders meeting. Julie and I are both e-NABLE chapter leaders. She from Greece, and I'll ask her to introduce herself in a few minutes. And I'm here in Rochester, New York. I'm also a co-founder of the e-NABLE network or movement. We've been around for, depending on how you count, about 10 years now. And we have chapters all over the world and thousands of volunteers, but we remain a fairly loosely organized network. And in some ways, I think it's part of our strength. In some ways, I think it's also one of our weaknesses, is that we don't have well-defined institutional partners worldwide. But that also means, and as we all saw during COVID, that during times of crisis, we're in a position to do things that established institutions have failed to do. I want to call your attention to hub.enable.org. I'll put that in the chat, which is our meeting place where we often do our collaborative work, and we have spaces for within the hub, which is sort of a tame Facebook kind of an environment for a variety of purposes. And I don't know at this moment if we have a Ukraine space, but we certainly have a space for the chapter leaders meetings, and that includes recordings for of our past, I'd say for the last 6 months or so, our past discussions about the crisis in Ukraine and whether there's a responsible way for us to be of service. I will turn back to the whole question of Ukraine after I give everyone a chance just to introduce themselves and say hello. And Julie, I wonder if you'd be willing to go next and tell us about yourself and e-NABLE Greece.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry for shutting my camera off all the time, but I have really bad connection here, so I'm trying to save some data. So I'm Julie from e-NABLE Greece. We are a very small e-NABLE chapter, just 3-4 people. And so up until now, we have given like 3 hands, and we are preparing 2 more. And we currently working with blind people, and we're making educational material for them, or tactile maps, or tactile board games. And currently we are trying to teach 3D printing to kids and teachers with autism. So we are trying to approach people with disabilities and relate them to 3D printing and the products from 3D printing and the procedure of 3D printing. So that's it from us for now.
That's great. And for David and Yuri and Anton, I'll mention that while we are best known for our hands, e-NABLE, we do have and have long expressed the desire to go beyond merely hands. And what Julie is talking about with autism and blind children, and by the way, Rick Williams is also doing some work on tactile tools for the blind, is very much within our unstated mission. Yuri, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, John. I'm used to be a co-producer of mini maker fairs here in Ukraine. We produced 15 maker fairs in 5 cities, and I'm of course aware of e-NABLE.org, but my efforts for the events was to explain community what does maker means. So we didn't have a lot of opportunities to dig deeper into e-NABLE kind project, but we are in contact with organizations who help people with disabilities, and they also took part in our latest maker fair.
Excuse me, it just occurred to me. This meeting is being live streamed right now.
Okay.
But if you want, we can disconnect that. It's helpful for us to make this information available to other people.
Okay. John, no problem.
Okay.
One point, we expected a blackout here, so I could be log off. Yeah, it is a kind of planned after today's surprises. So, okay, getting back now.
Yes, sir.
We stopped producing before maker fairs before COVID, but we are in contact with all the organizations. And I was invited here by Victoria Jakova from OSMS community. And also my point, my idea is as a most connected to makers all over Ukraine person, I want to get some shortcuts and invite your expertise to people who interested and ready to help. And Anton from Dnipro, he is one of these people. He is interested in topics, so maybe Anton could introduce himself also.
Thank you, Yuri. And Anton, let us know if you're able to unmute yourself. So Yuri, you are in the thick of it. You are, I'm not going to ask you specifically, you are somewhere in Ukraine now. And
yeah, in capital, yeah.
Okay. So Anton says that he's an engineer for a company that specializes in 3D printing. And so here we are.
They have an alert now in Dnipro, so maybe this is the reason Anton could not connect. So, yeah.
Very good.
We have a kind of strong community of people with the printers, but they have a lack of expertise in this particular area. So I missed previous chapter, and I trying to get jump into this train, and thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you for joining us and for hanging in there. I know it's a very challenging time. I would like to think that we can be helpful, and I have the impression that David is already doing some work that would tie to you. So David and Yuri, do you know each other already?
I do not know him, but I'm happy to get acquainted.
That's great. So David, it sounds like you have already worked through some of the issues and some of the channels. So I want to give the floor to you and let you get us up to speed. I should say that in our earlier discussions, we did think about prosthetics, and then we did think about braces, which seemed like they might be more practical. And we considered tourniquets, and then decided that that was, until we had real on-the-ground partners, that was as likely to be harmful as to be helpful. So, we're eager to help, and we're eager not to make a situation worse. So now tell us what you think we need to know, and let's figure out how we can work together.
Okay. So I'm David Mazer from Birmingham, Alabama. And as a Ukrainian, I knew I had to do something when the war broke out. I put my years of 3D printing experience to work, and I created DAP 3D. We're a 501c3 dedicated to crowdsourcing 3D print supplies for Ukraine. We currently 3D print medical braces. I have a couple next to me here. So this is a wrist brace, and it fits on like that. But this is the initial form. It prints flat, it ships cheaply. It's a simple design that takes very low experience to print. You put in hot water or like a hair dryer, there's any heat source, and you mold it to your hand, and it's not permanently molded. And I think we could have a greater impact if we were to work together.
That's great. So tell us about who's printing your models, and presumably you need more of those prints. Then they have to get from outside Ukraine into Ukraine, and then they have to be put into the hands of people who know how to use them in the field. Have you worked that part out?
Yeah, so right now where we're struggling is we have people printing, but we're not meeting demand. We've engaged the Birmingham community. We have a makerspace here, a Red Mountain Makers, and that's helped us. And I've been shipping it through Ukrainians I know in Birmingham who immigrated to Birmingham, and that's how we've been getting supplies there. We've been shipping it to a surgeon in Ukraine, so he's well trained to use these.
Well, that's tremendous. So it sounds like the opportunity for e-NABLE, obviously, is to mobilize our network and to identify a few locations. I'm going to guess that for United States makers, we should ship them to some location in Birmingham so that we can piggyback on that transport. And I wonder if there's a European location that could collect European prints.
So we don't have a European location at the moment, but if there's enough makers, we could look to find a channel.
That's great. That's great. So, Yuri, that's a very clear opportunity for us. And by the way, it's one we haven't had before. David, I'd love to know a little bit more, perhaps offline, about the surgeon at the other end and how that works. But our immediate opportunity, and we'll get on it, is to get the designs from you, any advice you have about printing and shipping, and I will do what I can to really turn this into a real push for e-NABLE. I think in principle, this is the moment we've been waiting for, and there should be a lot of e-NABLE volunteers who are eager to do something useful. So that should be great. That should be great.
Yeah.
You never know how these things are going to go, but this is something we can push for.
Okay. And I dropped the link to my website in the chat, and the designs are openly available there. And there's a lot of information there, so you can send that out, and I'm happy to answer any questions with anybody in your network.
That's great. Well, I'm going to work my way back to Yuri, but Julie, this seems like a no-brainer for us. Does it sound right for you and your group that in addition to your other activities, you might be able to start printing these braces?
Yeah, for sure. We have already done one here for a small child. So yes, for us, yes, it would be a great opportunity to help and maybe be the if you want the European spot to collect everything.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Nice offer. Thank you. Okay. And so Yuri, how does this relate to what you are seeking and what you might be able to offer?
We have a huge community of people who could print with different type of filaments. And now they mostly use models from Prusa. They were published in the beginning of the war, and we also interested in expertise from your community. So I think from logistic point of view, it will be better to print the most here in Ukraine until we have filament, because we have contacts in Poland, in Lithuania. We could get from that countries, but it will be better, I think, to print here as much as we could possibly produce, and also will be better to deliver and teach people who will work with these products, with a hair dryer or with these techniques. I think they are not so complicated. Correct, David?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, put your seatbelt on.
Rick, you should put yourself, I'll put you on mute, but unmute yourself as soon as you mean to be making noise. And I want to introduce you to Julie as well. So Yuri, the fact that you have capacity in Ukraine is obviously a terrific thing, but it sounds like David's designs would be useful to you.
Sure.
So let's make that connection.
Okay.
So for that matter, Yuri, can we find how to reach you through makerhub.org by email?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. All the
Okay.
contacts, of course.
All right. And I think I will create a space within the e-NABLE Hub and send it to all of you. Julie, I'm not positive I have your email, so if you put it in the chat,
Yes, I will.
that would be helpful. I will create a space for these designs to be visible to all of our Hub members, assuming that, and for David to share the designs with us. Yuri, what kind of expertise are you looking for?
This is, I think, the toughest one, and that need a lot of attention, and is about the prosthetics themselves. So what kind of prosthetics or temporary prosthetics, and what is the best way to where we have to start from to make all things correct?
I understand.
Because there will be no second chance to make prosthetics to wounded person. So, and
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit,
Okay.
Yuri. So you have no experience with prosthetics. You know, prosthetics are challenging. That's one of the reasons why I think David and we have focused on braces. For recently wounded people, e-NABLE has avoided providing prosthetics because even the prosthetists avoid prosthetics until the wound is well healed. If you begin putting prosthetics in place before that, you're going to slow the healing, and you can also produce lasting damage to the nerves. And so the first thing is to stabilize the limb and to ensure that it gets the right treatment. And 6 months to a year after the injury, that's when you start talking about prosthetics. Now, the war's been going on for a while, and so it could be that, so let me ask the question, is it clear to you whether you want to organize your network in Ukraine around braces or prosthetics or both?
I want to use my connections and resources to get this knowledge to the proper organization in Ukraine. I'm not going to do it by myself, and I'm asking people without experience not to get into.
Okay,
Is-
then
yeah.
I would suggest that we begin working together on the challenge of braces, and that we begin building up the network of collaboration and begin sharing expertise on that relatively low risk, high impact endeavor. And when you become aware of an amputee who has had medical attention or whose limb seems to have stabilized, then we can work on the prosthetic case on a one-to-one basis. But you should understand that prosthetics rarely work well on the first fitting. It's a gradual, iterative, repeated process. And it works best, especially with recent amputations, if you're collaborating with a doctor. So I think that working on developing our collaborative network on the braces would be the way to go. Now, Yuri, have you seen the kinds of braces that David has been doing?
Yeah, I seen such kinds of two websites. The first one, as I told before, it was Prusa printables or something like this, or in blog, even in Prusa blog. And second one was on some of Poland website. And again, I know some makers who print kind of in Odessa and maybe in Zaporizhia cities here in Ukraine, and they are in touch with hospitals. So, yeah.
Okay. So, David, I'm not familiar with these Prusa designs that Yuri is referring to. Are you?
I am, and our designs are nearly identical. The Prusa
Right.
designs do work, and I'm a little confused how they're difficult to print. Yuri, what problems are you running into with those designs? Because we found them to be pretty easy to work with.
Excuse me, David. My English is not so well. So could you please?
Yeah. So in Ukraine, what issues have you encountered with Prusa's designs?
What kind of issues? I'm not aware because I'm not in everyday touch with the makers. But as I know, I'm every time when someone want to print or produce something for hospitals, I'm asking about feedbacks every time, and a lot of time I just ask people to stop and not print in tourniquets and things like this. And from this person from Odessa, I had feedback that hospitals he in touch with have a kind of a good feedback. So I didn't heard from him about some issues with that models. So
Okay.
Okay. So let's just talk about next steps. I think this is no longer complicated.
Yeah.
David, do you want to just walk us through your website right now so that we can see where the models are? Tell us whatever you want to tell us about how to print them. And that would be step one.
Could you enable screen sharing?
Yes, of course. Oh, sorry, you don't want me to screen share. You want me to make David the host. There you go, David.
Okay. Okay, so this is our website. There's an option donate money, but right now we're looking for people to volunteer. So you just click donate print time, and you can send this link to anybody who you think's interested in 3D printing with us. And once they fill this out, we'll just contact them. So you can also just connect them to me one-on-one, and I'll just do the same thing as Forma do. And you could click right here for download print files, and just sends you to a Dropbox where you can find the print files. And it's just as simple as that. You can check
Okay.
out some pictures of all the braces we print right here. This is before warping, this is after. That's the palm brace. That's the wrist brace, finger brace, and then we have a second finger brace for mallet finger. This is a tree specific injury.
Is a what specific injury?
A mallet finger. So when your finger is like a joint bent like that, the tip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So great. And do you have priorities or quotas or some way of directing people towards what's most needed?
I've been directing people towards these two just because they have similar impact, but the print time is significantly lower. It's like 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how you're printing it, maybe 40. And these are a couple hours. And typically I push people to fill up their bed all the way. So like to maximize output, because really most people, the issue without keep them from printing more is just starting and stopping the printer. So having the most possible on build plate is our priority.
Cool.
So that's interesting. So this build plate is actually an assortment of devices, and can they download the complete build plate?
So every printer has a different size build plate, so they
Sure.
can download the individual parts, and I'll provide examples.
Okay.
And typically when they reach out, I guide them one through the process of like how to arrange it to have the maximum output.
Okay then.
Yeah.
And you've said that right now you're not meeting demand. How much demand do you think there is? Or if do we need hundreds? Do we need thousands? Do we need tens of thousands?
So we definitely need thousands. I am not sure if we'll need tens of thousands, but we're definitely so far under demand that I haven't really even thought about the number we need to hit.
Okay. So the website and your assistance is readily available. In order to encourage people to participate, Rick, if you're still with us, and even if you're not, I'm going to suggest that we come up with a badge that will be appropriate for this kind of an activity that will give us an ability to track how many e-NABLE people are working with you, even if they go straight to you, as you have offered to do. If we have the problem that you get more people than you're able to support and provide guidance to, we can talk about finding volunteers with e-NABLE to help with that. But the truth is, do you have print settings to recommend? I was going to say, the truth is, these are relatively simple prints. So I don't know how much handholding people are going to need.
Yeah, so our biggest recommendations is get a bigger nozzle, 0.8 or 1.2, because aesthetic quality doesn't matter as much, and we're already heating these up and warping them. So, and a bigger nozzle actually has greater layer adhesion. That's the biggest recommendation. After that, some people will come asking, how can we make it print faster? And I guide them through steps with that.
That's great. And that nozzle setting is to be found on the website?
I haven't put the recommendations for nozzle size on the website, although I can add that.
I'd appreciate it if you would. I think that it's very reassuring for people to, for example, say, we recommend use PLA, this nozzle size, etc. And then at that point, we have many volunteers who actually will know what to do. So do you want to share with us? So if they just say, hey, I can do this, and they want to send you prints, where do they send them? Is that specified on your website as well?
So I haven't put the address on the website for like privacy reasons, but when talking to them, I just tell them to ship it to my house, and then I handle it and bring it to people who ship it to Ukraine.
That's great. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And are you willing to get emails from queries as well as the
Yeah.
form? Okay.
Yeah, and I'll put my contact info in the chat.
Okay, that's great. So, Yuri, you mentioned power outages, and of course that's a challenge, but some of it could well be that it makes sense for your team, if they are worried about power outages, to work on not full beds and smaller parts. Because if it's a 10-minute print and you lose and things shut down, you've only lost 10 minutes. And indeed, those finger braces seem like they might actually be 20-minute prints. Is that right, David?
More like 30 minutes, but yeah, it's still short.
Okay. And what about tracking, either of the numbers of devices from our various volunteers or where they go, and any feedback from the field and so on? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, since currently all the devices are going through me, I just personally count them. Although at scale, once we get more locations, we'll probably need volunteers in different cities to do that. And then we're just shipping it to that one surgeon in Ukraine.
And do you get anything back from him that tells you that he's using them and that they're serving his purposes?
Yeah, so we just started shipping them to him, but he's going to send like pictures with soldiers wearing them, and like he's offered feedback, and he's very willing to help out the cause.
I think that would be really terrific, to motivate people and to help them know that their devices are getting put to use. To the extent that that can become sort of a routine part of the process, I suspect that will motivate a lot of people, and quite possibly provide an opportunity for publicity, which would lead to donations, which would help the cause further. Yuri, I wanted to ask, you all are okay for supplies? You have filament and you have printers?
Yeah, we have hundreds of printers in our network, and we have supplies of basic common materials. Our local manufacturers, one of them was captured by Russians in the beginning of the war in Kharkiv region, but even he find ways to kind of restore. He white labeling Poland filament and importing it into the country. And we also have 2 or 3 maybe manufacturers, and we have basic PLA, ABS, PETG, and even nylon and TPU. So
Okay,
we are good. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
David, I assume for the thermoforming that PLA is actually the
Yeah.
cheapest and the best.
Yeah, it is. We use PLA, and you can use almost anything for thermoforming that's a heat source. Like
Right.
I formed this 30 minutes ago, or like an hour ago, just in a pot of boiling water.
Right. Now, in terms of expertise, do you have a video of the thermoforming process?
I do, although if we're gonna like release it publicly, I think I should refilm a better quality one.
And indeed, it's not clear that Yuri's people will be, well, you don't know. I think it is quite possible that for Yuri's community, they may also do some of the thermoforming, in which case a video of that sort would be helpful. It's a remarkably simple and forgiving process, the thermoforming, but the video can encourage people to see and believe that. So I would recommend that.
And we don't thermoform here. Because it's a lot easier to ship just a flat piece than
No, that's the beauty. That's right. And then if you thermoform in the field, it actually is the shape.
Yeah.
Is the shape of the patient. It occurs to me, excuse me.
David, could you please share your expertise with the resin printing? I found the model for resin printing at your website or at your Dropbox.
Yeah, so for resin printing, we really haven't figured that out. We're still working on that because we have people with resin printers here. Although resin does not have the same properties as PLA, so it can be thermoformed. And we've committed to not printing lethal supplies, which limits us. And I actually went to Humanitarian Makers looking for something we could resin print, although nothing's come up at the moment. Have you found anything that could be resin printed?
Oh, we also have Chinese printers, and I think about 15% of our community have this abilities to print resin, but I was asking about the exact purpose. Is it maybe in some cases it will be better to grow in resin instead of PLA?
I doubt that, Gary. I'll be interested in what David thinks. But PLA is a very easy to work with and easy to thermoform material, and it's a safer material. I think the resins have chemical contents that are hard to predict and that could interact with an open wound. So I think focus on PLA for the medical braces, and the resin could turn out to be a really good opportunity when we get to the prosthetics. Does that sound right, David? Yeah,
and there are braces that could 3D print with resin, but we avoid them because they required like a custom print for every user because you can't thermoform them. But if you get to a point where you have abundance of resin, maybe that's something you could pick up.
Okay, I actually think we know what we want to do next. I will spread the word, see if we can't create some ways of motivating and letting people know. There is one topic I wanted to raise. David, you mentioned that you're committed to humanitarian purposes and not interested in working on weaponry. Did I hear you correctly there?
Yes, and it's surprisingly a lot easier to work with weaponry. There's just a lot more prints.
Say that again. Why would that be?
Oh, there's just more designs. Like, there's a company that I was working with to find non-lethal prints, and we're struggling to find print because most, like, beyond the braces, because most of what they produce is lethal. Like, have you seen the videos of where a drone dropped a bomb with 3 print fins and went through a sunroof? It's like stuff like that. It's like, yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, we're talking to the right people here because, frankly, the news from Ukraine recently, I'm happy to say, has pointed out that the Ukrainians are officially, and I truly hope it's true, making a point of respecting the human rights of Russian soldiers who surrender and who find a way out of this messy conflict. I would like to think that some of the braces we're providing might end up on the hands of Russian prisoners of war or Russian emigrants, the way it seems to be going, and that these can become tools of conciliation, not combat. And I assume that I'm sort of channeling your sentiments as well. Is that safe?
Yeah, although we're more like pledged against just producing anything that result in like somebody dying or lethal supplies, although we are looking for like to make peace, like bring peace to the region in that as well.
I missed the beginning of your sentence. That you said something about dying.
Oh yeah. So my like statement previously was that we're committed to like printing non-lethal supplies or supplies that can't be used to kill somebody, or like gun modifications or anything like that.
Sure.
We want only print non-lethal supplies, and that's where our like just greatest segment is.
Well, that's great. That's great. Yeah, Adapt 3D is not already an enabled chapter, is it?
It is not. We started as an organization.
Okay, you would be most welcome. We have a number of chapters that do have their own 501c3s. But it's a side issue, and I don't think it's particularly necessary, except that we can put you on our map, and that might help other people find you that way as well. You should visit hub.e-nable.org. You can look at map.enable.org, and let me know as you think of ways in which we can amplify the important work that you're doing.
Yeah. At the end of the conflict, or when our needs just not needed in Ukraine, I definitely see us like pushing all our 3D printing volunteers to another organization that works to a cause that continues beyond the war.
And let's look forward to that too. Okay. I don't have anything else I want to cover. I think, David, what you've done, and Yuri, what you are able to do within Ukraine has broken the logjam that we have. So I'm going to take some time and try to figure out how to get this going. And I won't take a lot of time. I'll try to get moving. It sounds like everything we need is on your website, so it's going to be up to us. But I'm going to try to recruit some collaborators who can help organize our community. And for that matter, David, you might be a good person to tap into. Do you have discretionary time for this?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So let me just open it and see if there are other questions or issues to be discussed. Yuri.
Yeah. I want to ask for your advice. If some company who have budgets and equipment want to start to producing prosthetics, and what will be the best roadmap for this company? Could you please share your experience?
Yes, and when you say a company, you mean one that might actually want to produce a profitable business making prosthetics for use in Ukraine.
We have very different models. Maybe it not goes about profitable business. Maybe it goes about crowdfunding. But at the manufacturing equipment of a company who could produce kind of more sophisticated products and have people, qualified people who get salary, but could produce for the crowdfunding reasons, for example. We need this expertise. And
right. I think the answer to your question is, to be honest, the biggest challenge we have, let me give you a little background. Within e-NABLE, for a variety of reasons, in many parts of the world, we have focused on prosthetics for children. That's because children don't have a way of getting prosthetics often, and because for kids of a certain age, the value of the prosthetic is not so much in what they can do, but in the way they feel about it, because now they're a superhero, right? For adults, functionality and cosmetics, right? So something that helps them do things that they couldn't otherwise do, and something that makes their disability less attention getting, because it looks more like a hand, is more important. I assume that in Ukraine, the pressing need will be for adults under the circumstances. So, and furthermore, we do have a design now, which would be very good for your more sophisticated users, which is the most beautiful e-NABLE hand in our 10-year history. It's called the Kinetic Hand, and it's got nice smooth contours, and it has joints that are made from flexible filament, which is usually a challenge for many of our volunteers, but it's quite likely that you can find people for whom that's a nice opportunity to use some of their more sophisticated equipment. So I would suggest that you start by looking at the Kinetic Hand. You can find it on the hub. In fact, when I stop yakking, I'll find the link. But you should look at our device catalog, and you'll see that there are hands and arms available based on the Kinetic Hand. I think you or the company you're talking about should start by trying to make one of those. And you'll get a feel for the operation, a sense of the limitations, how difficult it is. And that's the technical part. The big challenge, as in all human affairs, has to do with humans. The other thing that you and your partners need to do is make contact with the people who need these devices and the medical professionals who can help them. I don't know how many, what the prosthetists in Ukraine, I don't frankly know whether they're doing prosthetics or whether they're being pressed into service as field surgeons, but you're going to have to find prosthetists who can work with you. And if you do those two things, you create some nice looking mechanical enabled devices, and you find some prosthetists who are working with amputees who they think would be ready for this, then you can begin on the next steps. So I think you have two good next steps. One is to make some devices and to figure out how to do that. And the other is to use those devices to begin a conversation with prosthetists and occupational therapists and amputees who may be able to then say, okay, this is great. How do we take this forward? Yuri, I remember that you don't listen so fast. Was that clear, or should I go over any points?
Sure, and thank you for this, for your slowing down. Thanks a lot. John, we're talking about Matt Boltel model of Kinetic Hand, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and if we talk about prosthetists, Anton is from he's from Dnipro city, and hospitals of Dnipro city made the biggest amount of surgery, war-related surgery, because they are nearest city to the front line from 2014.
Yes.
And they have just a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge, and of course about prosthetics. So this is the reason they asking for advice and trying to help and be involved in this process of helping wounded people.
Sure. Well, that's great. So see if you can get feedback on the device in question, get some feedback about whether they think they would like to begin testing these devices with their patients, and we can take it forward. Rick, I see that you've settled down and you're with us. Rick, I believe, has made a number of Kinetic Hands and is a very good resource for technical questions you may have about how to do this kind of thing. And so our operators are waiting for your call. But I do think that making a device and then helping Anton show it to the prosthetists there is a very good way to try to begin the connections. You'll notice that it's the social connections that have been the challenge for us. And I think that for the medical braces, we now have a path forward. For the prosthetics, I've tried to outline how you can help us find the path forward. Make sense?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, good. Any other questions or topics or concerns? cautions. I have one in terms of caution. Let me remind you that this conversation has been live streamed and is going to be online. There's a war on, right? No, we do not assume everyone's good intentions. Are you comfortable that we haven't said anything that you want to take offline? You're okay.
I'm okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay. You have my email, I believe. So let me just make sure that on this chat, Deryagan, I don't know if I have your contact information, Anton. And I'm putting my.
Yeah.
Uh,
I will share with Anton your yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. And Rick, before you were on board, I suggested that I think it's a great opportunity for us to create a badge. Maybe it's not in Ukrainian colors, maybe it is, I don't know. Maybe it's a sign of peace, but there should be a badge specifically for people who become part of this medical braces for conflict zones project. And you should note that I use those phrases carefully. I think we have a path forward now for medical braces. And as discussed with David, we're his organization and ours is not interested in being involved in lethal weapons of any sort. And I said that, you know, I think that good care for prisoners of war is a great step towards a future in which we're all working together. So branding that that badge and finding a way of using that to keep track of the all the e-NABLE people who are hopefully going to get recruited to start making braces and shipping them to Birmingham, Alabama, and perhaps to Julie in Greece is what you and I will talk about again. And probably we want to find another e-NABLE person who can really keep this top of mind. I'm not sure who that might be yet, but I'll also talk to Adam Jennings, whose Afghanistan initiative might tie into here also. Julie, do you have anything you want to add before we break?
I think I'm fully covered. Sorry for the camera, guys. I have issues here with the
That's
camera. Again, I have to say that, yes, we want to be this point for sending all these braces back to Ukraine and everything else. I will join soon your webpage, David, and we will take it from there. And of course, I'm waiting for the further instructions for Mr. Scan.
Further instructions for what?
For the steps e-NABLE want to take toward this matter.
Okay, very good. Julie, and for that matter, David and Yuri, one of the challenges with e-NABLE is that we have people doing all sorts of good things around the world, and we don't know about it. So I just want to urge you to keep us posted by email if it's sensitive, or through the space that I will be setting up, so that we can be aware, so that we can see new opportunities, so we can spread the word and hopefully get more people involved. This is a big deal. We've been circling the airport for months now. I think we actually have a path forward, so we'll be following up. Thank you all. I'm going to capture the chat before the call ends.
Thank you.
And I have David's email. I have Julie's email. I do not have Anton's email in the chat, but now we do. And so we're in good shape and we'll follow up. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.